Hi everyone, I'm Danny, and this is the talk about Kotlin Notebooks. It's not a regex one, it happened on the other side. I think both are kind of scary topics. One is about analyzing data, and one about regex. Both, hopefully, nothing to be afraid of after this talk. As you can see, I had to follow this trend, like trying to Ghiblify a picture for this makers. You have no idea how many prompt attempts I had to create this. There was always something wrong. As you can see, the text is cut off. Yeah, let's not talk about it. At some point I can show you all the variations of this I have and how they're very different. So if someone says, I will replace your designer, don't worry, you get to 90% very quickly, and the next 2 days you're trying to get to another 10, and you will not make it because it will be completely different. Cool, so let's start. Interestingly, there are on this conference, so let's start differently. Marton started his talk earlier today, reminding of Kotlin Conf 2 years ago. He got inspired by something there. That was the screensaver thing with the logos. And actually, for me, it was the same. 2 years ago, I think Kotlin Notebooks were introduced. I said, this is so cool. I definitely need this. And I will use it for work. I have already an idea. Nothing happened for a long time. You never have time for that, or what I needed wasn't there. And then just recently, I switched internally at SoundCloud, so I'm still at SoundCloud. Trying to not do Android anymore for a while, doing a bit more full stack. And there was a situation where I completely said, this is exactly what Kotlin Notebooks will be useful. I had an idea in mind. It didn't turn out as I thought it would be. So there's also a bit of the journey and what can be used for and maybe what not. Cool, but let's start. So this is Kotlin Notebooks. For most of us, when you hear about like tables, aggregation, all these data analyzing things, it sounds very scary, especially as data scientists. They have a scary language called Python. I love our data science in the company. I love to talk to them. They help me a lot. But I'm struggling sometimes with the simplest thing. Like they give me some data and I just want to show it in Looker or even like in spreadsheet. And then wait, what goes where so that I get my graph? So I'm this kind of guy. So this is the background. This is why I thought, you know, I'm good with code, except for writing Python. I don't want to write Python, but I want to write code to do these kind of things. And for me, this was Kotlin Notebooks. So no data scientist required by looking at data. This was the idea. Let's see if we ended up there. By the way, what I'm doing here is a Kotlin notebook. So cool. What is? Give me a second. So what is a notebook? A notebook is a shareable document that combines code, Kotlin code in this case, for us, plain language description, data, visualization of data, and can be even some interactive things. So that's the definition here. It's an interactive environment for exploring and validation, visualizing data. To be honest, most of the time, if someone gives me now a CSV file or something, I actually use this. And let me look into this file. No, we're not opening the file in the editor, but doing it with code. And hopefully you like it. So the notebooks as we know them are called Jupyter. And it's weird spelling there. And this started actually as an interactive Python shell in the beginning. So this is where it comes from. And it's out there, you can find it everywhere. A data scientist is their daily bread and butter. And now with Kotlin support, maybe also it will be ours. So let's write some code. So it's actually very simple. It's an interactive thing, so you can actually write something like 1 + 1. It gives you immediately the output. Let's do another one, 2 + 2. This is just how it works. You put code, it runs it. Can't tell, but this is Kotlin code here. As you can see, only the last one will be printed there. If you want to print both, you can do something like display. Give me a moment, like this, I think. And then it will show you both of us. So it took me a while to figure that out, by the way, how to get in one cell multiple things to print. So this is how it is. And the documentation for that part is very simple. You go to the documentation, and you're doing exactly like this. Hey, put in this, try to show an image, and everything is super smooth. And then I kind of leave you alone. This is also where I'm trying to, maybe to show you my journey and maybe get you interested and give you some hints where to start. If you, after this talk, will like this, there's another talk about Kotlin Notebooks tomorrow. Someone will dive into data frames, which is one thing that we'll look at in a second, very in-depth. So hopefully this can be the start of the journey, and then tomorrow we all learn more. I'm not an expert, but I figured out for me how to make this work. So what we saw is a cell, especially the core of a Jupyter notebook. You can have multiple of those. A cell is executable code, can be Python, and this time it's Kotlin. I'm using an IntelliJ plugin, so if you want a Kotlin Notebooks, you need a plugin. Android Studio, IntelliJ, whatever. I can have markdown text, this is what you're seeing here. This is just simple markdown, as you know it, and unformatted text. Cool. Let's do something real. I mentioned a thing called the DataFrame. One thing I'm looking at my current, one of the projects I was looking into, you might know Firebase dynamic links. If you know them, you know there's ending in this August, so a lot of us doing migrations projects, and I was in one of those. And when you get your data, you're getting a couple of CSV files. So let's look at one. I have one here, so we knew the data frame. You can import every Kotlin library you want. For some that you use very often, there's the shortcut, but actually you can import whatever you want. I mean, if it runs on a desktop. So let's just get that, and I have the import. Okay, cool. So we need a data frame, dot read, and I have a file called, I think, Firebase CSV. Let's just run this. So there's a CSV file lying in project called Firebase CSV. This is now all the time when I have a CSV file, I'll look into this. Okay, looks cool. Short link, and a bunch of things. Maybe the first thing, if you get this CSV file, how many rows does this have? How big is this? Because you have to make it 100,000 lines. Okay, it's quite a big CSV file, so maybe editor was still trying to load it. And you can do a lot of cool stuff. So let's just, like with, I don't know, like queries, you can just, give me just the first row, because I just want to see something. Okay, there's a thing called short link and link. I don't care about the other ones. So how about we do, give me short link, short underscore link. I should have put the platform boots. I'm a bit too high today. And link. This should give me another data frame with just these two. Short, I think it was underscore link, right? Couldn't find that column. Cool. I have a new data frame with just these two. So you can do a lot of manipulations. You can do a map. You can do a filter. I think there was one column, for example, was for an interesting APN. So you could, for example, say, how many rows are there that have the, so we can filter it.get APN, where, I don't know, where is this thing, oops, sorry. Where is this not null, right? Is there special links that are differently, that I have to treat differently? So we can do this. Actually, exactly one, and if you can do count afterwards. So you can do all these things. So there's one here. One row where this table is not. So you have all the things that you know, mapping, filtering. Just keep in mind, so you're walking over a table by code. By normal collections code, you write in Kotlin. So what is a data frame? Think of it as like it's a programmable version of a table. It's just a table, right? It's just the way it is expressed in notebooks. And you can have add, split, convert, parse. The nice thing is the last one. You can actually export these files. So you can do some manipulation, then export to CSV, bam, with a few lines of code. Like, you don't have to write some weird scripts anymore. And it all feels like you're doing in a sketch file. So let's do something that's a bit more fun. So another thing that the team I'm now in owns is our public API. So if you want something cool with SoundCloud, we have an API. And a lot of DJ apps, for example, use it. And this is the story why I wanted to do this. So let me maybe tell you a bit more. So I came with a project, and my colleague went to sabbatical for 3 months. And he gave me a bit of, this is what I had so far. He was alone. And as it is in a project, when you're alone, you have your own way of working. You don't have to share with your colleagues. And he had a couple of Python scripts that get data from a lot of areas, dump them to a CSV, and then when the boss wants a report, he would just upload it to a spreadsheet, create a little graph, and then cut them as an image or something and send them to the boss. It sounded nice and it worked for him, but now we're sharing, and I thought this was the moment. I remember Kotlin Notebooks. Can I do something like this with notebooks, right? Can I automate this a bit? Because I can write code. So one of the things that we want to look at, how many registrations do we, for example, get from DJ apps? So let's look at the data frame. I have another file here, data frame dot read. Let's import DataFrame first. Autocomplete makes it much easier to write. DataFrame, what's wrong, DataFrame? Ah, thank you. Yeah, what can possibly go wrong in the live coding? Remember last year I needed a second laptop because mine broke when I attached it. This is still the same laptop, so I'm a bit like risk searching today. Didn't fix anything there. So there's another one here, which is, I think called signups. So there's a signup CSV. Let's just look at it. These are made up names, but we have something similar. So I just asked Gemini, can you create me a bunch of DJ application names with the daily signups? So we have something like this. It's a date, it's the application, and the signups we're getting. And now I want to visualize. This is what the report that my colleague wanted to send out. So how do we visualize? We need something, we need some eye candy, right? So we're importing another library called candy with K because we're in a Kotlin world. And it's basically to visualize data frames. Come on, come on. One of the things you will learn is Kotlin Notebooks, sometimes things can get very slow. I never figure out when this happens, but it happens. Cool. Now we want to plot this. Don't be scared. What we want to do, we want to write maybe some bars, right? You know. So I want to do a bars for my application. And what do we need? On the x-axis, and I want to have the date. Makes sense, right? To see the change every day. Then the y, should be the daily signups. And then we have to do something with the application name. So let's use this, use the color for this. So fill color. So fill color is the application. And then we just run this. So very simple Kotlin code. It's not compose, but I think it's very, very easy to understand. X will be date, Y will be daily signups, and we want to use the application for the color. So, and we have a nice little bar. I hope you can see it. It would take me, even this took like 15 seconds to compile. It took me much longer to build this in spreadsheet or in Looker. I would still, wait, what is the second one? Where do I have to put this? So this is very easy. So you can do nice things with this. And you have the autocomplete, so even if you have no idea what you're doing, you get started. There's also AI, but usually there are not much data. I think they got trained on with Kotlin Notebooks, so it usually gives you more Kotlin-ish code that sometimes a bit weird. Sometimes it gives you things that don't exist, and then you tell him, and then them, and then, yeah, it will dig a hole and never get out of it. So better check online. So we developers are good with APIs. CSV files, not our typical thing, right? So let's do something with an API, which might be much more in the direction of what you are doing daily. So there is API github.soundcloud.com. So this is our SoundCloud API, and this is the GitHub repo where you can find it. GitHub has an API, so this is what I want to do. So we use DataFrame again. Hopefully new cell will be fast. Nice. DataFrame. Dot read. And I'm doing exactly the same thing, but passing in an API endpoint. So this returns a JSON. There's no CSV. And the data frame can read JSONs. It shows me a table view of this JSON. If it would be, this is a nice one and very easy one because it's not nested. If it's nested, you do a mapping, and then, for example, you can flatten certain ones, and then it will just flatten them. I have more complex examples later with the SoundCloud API, for example. Let's see if we can have a look at those. So you have a JSON, but you can look at JSON this way. And then what should we do with this one? For example, one thing, so this is the open issues you can find there. I think it's issues, right? Let's do issues.count. So there's a GitHub API to get the open issues on the SoundCloud API, and I just count the number of rows. Just so I know when I come back in the office what I have to do. 30 open issues on GitHub. A nice day to look into something without even opening GitHub, right? And you can imagine how I can do things without this, with this. So let's do, I don't know, maybe one more thing. We labeled them, and I think there's a label. So bugs, I think bugs. Let me check my note. I think like this. I think it's labels equals bug. How many bugs are labeled here? Because some are feature requests. Only 17. Cool. And then I don't know. You can get only the. Yeah, let's do this. So I can get only the title out of those. For example, I went to a workshop in New York just to show what people are asking for. Hey, this is a list of all the open issues. You don't have any open GitHub. But you know, your boss, they want to have some nice graphs. Always works much better. So let's do one more graph before we keep going here. So just run this so that you can see again what was the structure. So there's actually a lot of fields here. I want to have this state, because it only shows you the open ones. I want all ever existing ones. And then I want to group them. And so there's a state which is open or closed. I want to group them by state. So there should be simple. Wait, this is of course wrong. So let's group them by state. Okay, cool. Okay, now there's close and open, everything else is grouped in there. So this is opposite of flatten, but I can't do much of it. But you can always see it, it's 26 and 4. But it's called aggregate. The nice thing is, I never got it like when it came to tables and so in Looker. But when you do it with code, somehow, I don't know, this is more my brain, I can understand what's happening here, because it's more the way you use it. So I want to have the count of each, and creating a new column, let's call it state count. State, come on, count. So we're grouping it by the state, and then just count these each, and give me a new table. So now, close 26, open 4. This looks nice. And now you know that you can send this nice email to your boss. Let's start plotting this, because we want to have a nice chart. What would make sense? A pie chart. Let's do a pie chart. I want slices. So the first slice is this new state count. And the second was, let's use the color, so which is the state. So one color for each value in state. Let's just do this. So we went to an API endpoint, we grouped it by state, and it will, this is the pie chart. The thing around you can remove, it's just layouting parameter if you want to get rid of this. But this looks nice. This is something I can take, this is something I can send around. I think this is super nice. And I've written a few lines of code. So there's a lot of libraries out there that you can use, just showing you what's actually possible. Because you can probably say, hey, I can do this myself with my tools. But maybe, might be a bigger image I'm loading here. Come on, show me this one. This is just an example image from how a pie chart can look like. And actually just by adding, I think, one parameter more, you get something like this, or two more. One for the gradient and one for this exploding thing. So you can send something like this around with just like another line of code. You can even send, this is another one, and this is all part of the standard library. There's another example where they, I think, plotting, I don't even know what, let's have a look. So there's tons of libraries. This is what we're using Candy here. Candy uses some plot library under the hood that's much more powerful. And there are a lot of graphs. There's one that's called Kalinin graph, which is a funny name that you can have a look at. There's a tons of library. They're actually all in this short include because they're meant to work with data frames. Okay, let's see. Yeah. So something like this. This is all that's done with a few lines of code. If you want to plot something like this when, I don't know, whatever the observable LP verse was here. So examples you can find online. So what's the thing about it? You might think, hey, that's nice, but I want to stay with my compose and write some compose and make a screenshot and send to my boss. I said these are shareable files. So you can actually take this file. It's called, it's a weird ending, YP, let's see, YPYNP. You can take these and put them to GitHub. So let's look at, and upload them to GitHub, for example. So this is my GitHub. I uploaded just this project, notebooks talk. And let's go into the Kotlin folder. And we are looking right now, so there's a backup one that shows us, just in case something went wrong. And I'm opening this file. But you can see it's quite big for a few lines of source code. And now we'll see why. Because everything that you see is in there. So you're sharing this file, and everything that you run is actually embedded into this. Your metadata, the code that we've written, so everything is there. So you can literally edit, and all your colleagues have a look without having to understand what you wrote, but they can also manipulate the code, for example. The only thing is, if I would now edit this file in the source code, it wouldn't change the output, because you still have to compile it. It kind of makes sense, right? Which will come in a second. But yeah, so sharing is caring, so this is super cool, and for me, one of the main features of Kotlin Notebooks. So let's go back here and enter presentation mode. Cool. So we had this. Where were we? Yeah. So how does this work? So we just look at the file. Maybe let's do this first. So let's take this file and open it in Finder. And then open it with something else, but so this is the actually file that we're looking at, and you can see, if you can see it, I see a base64 embedded image. This is the way it put the image in there. A very long one, maybe here I think that we just saw some code. So you'll find all the metadata. It's kind of, you can see it as like embedded HTML. Okay, that's all still images. Let's search. Can we search a plot here? Yeah, there's some. Here is the sign-up file. So this is the source code actually to execute. You will find the metadata in there. So it's like a look HTML file. It's a text file. This is a nice thing. Everything there is text. And the interesting thing how this works, you'll find in the end. So this tells, there's some metadata here that tells what this is. So that this uses a language called Kotlin, which version, and all of this. So we will go back to our presentation. Come on, I want to go to Notebook Talks. Cool. So we have these output cells that are executed and they are saved within the file. It's a text file, including the metadata. And the thing that makes it work is a kernel. So what we're having, or what you need to install for Kotlin notebooks, because a normal Jupyter notebooks doesn't have Kotlin code, is a Kotlin kernel. When you install the IntelliJ plugin, it comes with a kernel, but you can also install it yourself on top of your normal notebook version. And there are like over 100 programming languages actually that Jupyter supports. We think about Python, but actually there's tons out there, especially of the math environment that would work. Even Scala, if you like Scala. Cool. I want to do one more thing here. Let's do something a bit more cooler. I thought let's make something that's a bit more Android Maker specific. So I asked the organizers, can you send me attendees from which countries are at this conference? So they sent me a file, just the number of the countries, so running anonymized, I don't even have numbers. And I put it in a CSV file, so let's look at this. While attendees, it's a DataFrame first. Oop, sorry. Okay. We have a DataFrame, now we can read the DataFrame. DataFrame there, dot read. And I think it's called attendees. Let's see. Cool. What I did is taking this just number of, come on, it didn't print anything, so it just did the DataFrame itself. I asked Gemini, can you add the coordinates of the capital to this file? So I don't know if these are right, but it's basically added them as a CSV file. Now we just have to show it, right? So, and then I was thinking, okay, how do we draw a map and add a couple of points to it? That would be nice, right? So let's find, give me a second, because I have to definitely look this up somewhere. Oh, no, I have it here, cool. So there's another library we can use. So we used Candy before, but there's another called candy.geo, and I think we need to use latest descriptors. This will just make sure we are taking the latest version of a library, which sometimes is very important because otherwise you might have conflicts. So we're importing candy geo, which comes with a new handy class. Come on, import these things. So it's a hotspot of my phone, because the Wi-Fi wasn't the most stable one. Okay, cool. So we're still putting the same thing, but now we have GeoCandy. So GeoCandy comes with an import of a geo data frame, because I learned there is a format out there called GeoJSON. This is how you put like world maps and all these things into a JSON file. So I downloaded the one for Europe. There's a lot of OpenStreetMap. All of those are built based on GeoJSON. So there's a read GeoJSON, and I think I had a Europe one. Let's see, Europe GeoJSON. I will make it a data frame so that a normal data frame, you can more see what's in there. Because when you just open the pure file, it's huge and you will not understand a thing. But this actually gives us a nice version of it that makes sense. See, we're good in time, that's good. And then my idea is to combine these two, draw you a nice map of Europe, and let's add these points to it. And it's all with a few lines of code. Okay, so we have a list of countries here, where they are, their longitude, latitude, and the polygons that basically would draw these countries. So there's a lot of points, so this is when you would open this. They're not really that much fun, but let's plot a GeoJSON. To map that, there's a thing called a geomap. And we can even run it already, but let's do fill color. I don't know, we an Android conference do green. Let's do this for a moment, it'll be faster. And I said the GeoJSON is a really big one. So now we are drawing a map of based on this JSON file with basically plot and geomap is the two commands that we need. They're all built in, there's nothing crazy here, it's just the geo dependency that we have here. Also keep in mind that I'm mirroring my display, this is why it's a bit smaller, slower. You know it from Google Meets, probably similar issues. Cool, we have a map of Europe, and now we just combine these two. So how about adding some geopoints? Nice. So let's bring this thing back. So I had this attendees thing. Oh, come on, go to the front. So we need some points. So I want to map the original ones that we had. And actually, yeah, that's limited. And I need geopoints, that's the only thing. So let me write a little bit of code. So there's a geofactory dot create points that needs a coordinate. So this is it dot, so it is the data frame. We are mapping a field, right? I think longitude. Let's start latitude. It needs a double, so we have to write something ugly here, but it's fine. And the second one, what doesn't it like about it? Create point. What are we missing here? Oh, the coordinate. We need a coordinate like this. Okay, what am I doing wrong? So create point and another point. Too many arguments for create point. Wait. What am I doing wrong? Wait, we need two of them. Hop. Worst case, we'll copy it, sorry. If you've been at the talk I gave a couple of years ago where the keys fell off the keyboard, I think we are still doing good. Okay. Cool, we have geopoints now. Let's make sure we're closing this thing. And the map is done. Now we have points. Get rid of this and give the points here. Cool. Was a bit of code, a bit of ugly code, but you developers, you can make this better. You can make some nice extension functions. As I said, you can use any library you want. You can even use things on the project, although I struggled a bit with this, so sometimes it doesn't find it. So right now where it says no dependencies, you can actually use the dependencies of your project. Which is very handy, but sometimes it has conflicting things. So mixing normal code and notebook code, I had some issues. with that. So let's hope we can see this before we move on. It also comes, and I can show you the code after this, with a nice integration of Ktor. So Ktor client, setting up, you don't have to set it up, it's already there. You just go HTTP client dot something, and you do your request as normal. So there's a lot of shortcuts for things that you want to do. Ktor client you need, for example, when you need some headers like authorization. So my example uses the SoundCloud API. But otherwise, you can actually use the DataFrame. So any idea why this is now like this? Very simple one. So hope you got that. It should be like this. And then it should work. But you can see he was pointing drawing on a map. I think we can also, I'll scroll a bit down. So what do you need to use this? So you need an IntelliJ plugin, for example, if you want to write or edit notebooks. There's an alternative one if you don't have an IDE or you don't want. There's a tool called DataLore also from JetBrains. It's basically an online tool that is all about creating notebooks. And then you have like, it felt a bit, I hope no one from JetBrains is here, it felt a bit beta to me, so especially with the AI integration. It constantly actually destroyed my code by trying to ask help because it was duplicating things and putting it in the middle, so that didn't work that properly. Yeah, it worked now. Nice, and the amount of code that we wrote for this was still very low. As a viewer, there's GitHub, so GitHub supports it by default. Any Jupyter notebook, although it's a Kotlin one, for viewing it, any viewer can do. They can run Jupyter notebooks. There's Chrome apps available and stuff like this, so you can find a lot of viewers out there because it's just a text file that you need to render. So what about the thing that my colleague had? So my idea in the beginning was I want to replace all his Python scripts. These crazy scripts that does all the things, save it to file, generate. You saw this is not the fastest tool. So I tried to do some really heavy computation of like, take a data frame, map them to a lot of coroutines, launch them all, and then get the data. Next morning I came back, it was still running. It was like 12 hours later. So I think the Python script did it in 2 minutes or something. So don't do this. So one learning, this is not for heavy computation. Always have an input file that you work from, a CSV, for example. Or if it's a simple API, you can go to API. So the approach we went is we're still using the Python script. We put it on GitHub. We have an action that runs this Python script. It creates a dump to the CSV file. And then all we need to do is actually update our notebook. If you want to do this, you need a tool called Anaconda, because Python, Anaconda, maybe you get the joke, to install the Kotlin kernel. It doesn't work with Brew itself, so Brew is for Jupyter Notebooks, but not for the kernel. And then you can actually have an update command on command line to actually update your notebook on CI. So actually you have something, then every week you have the latest report. So you have one tool, download something, and then either open it and press play yourself, or use the update on CI. So both work, which is very nice. Learnings. This was harder than I thought, to be honest, because the very simple examples are there, and then you're kind of left alone. It breaks all of a sudden sometimes in the IDE. You use latest descriptors usually is your savior, but I had it last week. I wanted to do a dry run, and literally nothing worked anymore. Everything was red, and IDE restart helped. Also sometimes memory increasing helped. But this is more for creating. Once they're there, right? Everybody can look at them. The JetBrains folks at the Kotlin Slack channel are very responsive. If you have a question, dump it there. There's a channel for Kotlin Notebooks. So thanks for all responding all my questions. Don't do big computation like I did. So start from some input file. It can be a large file. It's not a problem. But don't do, as I tried, like hundreds of coroutines and launch them in the Kotlin Notebook. I actually found the examples at some point. And there are tons of examples. There's I think JetBrains' own repository with examples without end. But finding this was the hard point. When you have it, oh my God, this is all I needed. Like, should have shown me like weeks ago. So the examples are out there. I will send the links, maybe together with the notebooks, just share the repository, and then you have all of those. So especially when it comes to visualization, you can do amazing things there. That's it. I'm not an Android engineer anymore, but I just learned from Vitos, who now runs Android, you can see in the front. Actually, our team hires or plans to hire Android engineers in Berlin or London. If you know someone, let me know. Another generated picture here I'm trying to load. Otherwise, we are on the good, as the previous Ed said, on the good socials. Go to Blue Sky, Berlin, soundcloud.dev for all the API questions. So use our API. It's open. If you ever heard SoundCloud API is closed, it's actually open again. We're taking registrations. You can build apps SoundCloud API, and all the news we'll post there. So we just joined Blue Sky there with the SoundCloud account. The generated ChatGPT image does not load, as you see. It's still doing it, but maybe in the end. So if you see it, that was another one that took a long time. If you ever want to see generate images step by step, how they get worse and better over time. Yeah, I can't make the joke of this one. Maybe it still appears. But thanks for your attention, and come tomorrow, I think at 11 o'clock, to the DataFrame talk if you want to dig more, if you learn what can you do with data frames. Thank you. So while we're trying to load this image, I can take questions because we have time. And as I said, what I'm using, every time I get like a CSV file or something on JSON, let me explore this with code. It's actually fun. All of a sudden, a CSV file is a fun thing. Like, what can I do? Like, how many lines does this have? What's in here? Let me remove the noise. And just like, actually fun exploring to data files. If you have no questions, then I'll be, there's one.
Yeah, do you know what it is that's taking so long?
I have no, that's why I said it happens sometimes. I think one problem is the mirroring, because mirroring, mirror my screen slows it down. This is usually takes, I would say, max 20 seconds if we would do it offline. It could be memory. I mean, we have a lot of images that we loaded in this project right now. A restart will make it fast. But yeah, this happens every once in a while. This was said, for something that is now there for 2 years, it still feels a bit, still early, needs some love. JetBrains, it's a cool tool. Please work on it. Okay, in the uploaded version you see, so you see basically an image of SoundCloud developers that we try to generate. We have a bit too many arms in some of them.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Is it possible also to create some utility functions in the notebook or use coroutines?
Yeah, you can code coroutines, but not too heavy. The utility functions, it's recommended to do it in your project, and then you go from no dependencies of project dependencies. You could put them in here, but the cell usually don't reference each other, so I would put them in the code and then use them from here, just an import them. Although I was struggling a bit with it.
Thank you.
Cell, it's finished. Woo! So the funny one of this one, I wanted, because last night I heard, hey, we are hiring developers. I generated this, and then in the third version, the word notebook appeared out of nowhere because it was the same session where I generated the other one 3 days ago. So I didn't ask him to put the word notebook there. And yeah, if you see someone with too many hands, maybe you're already qualified. So position not open online, but find me or Vitos if you're interested. Cool. Thanks.